Hello and welcome to Math 3A Calculus, spring of 2025. My name is Greg Perkins and I'm the instructor for this class. So up here in the right you'll see my email address, so please use the gperkins@hartnell.edu to contact me. It works much better than the Canvas message system. I will have in-person office hours Monday and Wednesday from 10 to 11. The Rotarium is in the Merrill Hall building. And if you're on the main campus and you know where the big parking structure is, the 3-level parking structure, the Merrill Hall is right across from that. And as you walk in, there's a big empty room called the Rotarium. Also, we can meet by appointment if you email me, and we could arrange a time for that. So we are going to have homework and quizzes done on MyMathLab. I'm actually going to make a second video dedicated to just the MyMathLab, and I'll talk about that in detail. You are going to need a graphing calculator. I use a TI-84. This being an online class, you could use Desmos if you want a free option. And I'm just going to move down here to how your grade is determined. So there's the MyMathLab homework and quizzes. So in total, that's 40% of your grade. And then there's the problem sets that I made up, podcasts that I made up, and participation quizzes that I made up. And if you look at the second through fourth page, very important because these are all the due dates for the whole semester. So there's going to be something due every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Rather than having a whole bunch of stuff due like on a Friday night, just break it up so that there's a little bit due on Monday, a little bit due on Wednesday, a little bit due on Friday. So there's something due every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I would suggest that you either print this out or keep a copy of it somewhere that you can access it. So I actually keep it on my desktop. I mean, literally I have a paper copy right over there, but also on my desktop so I can always open it and say, what are they working on this Wednesday, February 5th? Okay. All right, so there's the whole all the due dates for the whole semester. All right, so now let's go back to Canvas. So there's the syllabus that I was just going over, another copy of what's due, and as we go through these, once we finish something, then I'll take it off the list. So basically, whenever you open this up, whatever's towards the top of the page, that's what's due. And so here are all of I broke them up by chapters. So for section 2.1, you could look at the notes. So this is just a PDF of the notes, or you could and should watch the lecture. And the lectures, the name, secant lines, and velocity, when you go to do the online homework with MyMathLab, it's labeled exactly the same. So section 2.1, secant lines and velocity. All right, so you can watch the video. There's also a PDF of the notes, so you could also have that. Basically, when I made the video, once I finished the video, whatever I'd written down, then I just scanned that right here. So there's also the notes. Of course, Canvas is taking its time to load, but there you go. So here's the notes, what I wrote out in the video. I strongly recommend that you watch those videos. Okay, so in theory, what would happen is you would watch the video, take a look at the notes, and then you'd be ready to do the MyMathLab homework for section 2.1. Like I said, that part I'm going to explain in a second video. All right, the other thing to do is, so there's also problem sets. So the first problem set is due on Monday, February 3rd. So with the problem sets, I made a folder right here with all of the problem sets. So the problem set itself is right here. So problem set number 1. And it would be best if you print it out. So you can just download it and print it out and then show all of your work in the space provided. So I left enough space that you could write it out. Of course, if you've got like a tablet, you could just write it on there And either way you do it, you will need to create a PDF and then upload it when you're done. So whether you do it handwritten or on a tablet, you then create a PDF. And when you go over here to turn in assignments, there would be problem set number 1. And here's another copy of it. Again, please write out your solutions. And then this one isn't open yet because today is actually January 9th, so class hasn't started. But then right about here, it would say upload your assignment, and it does need to be a PDF. And if you aren't sure, you can watch this video right here, how to create a PDF with your phone. Basically take pictures of it, create a PDF, and then upload it to Canvas. Okay, so with the problem sets, I do have example videos. So basically I look at the problem set itself, and then I do questions that are similar. So they're not going to be exactly the same, but they are very similar to the problem sets. So that should be helpful with those. And for each one, there's the problem set and then the video. Okay, let's see what else we need to talk about. So we talked about the problem sets. Next, the podcast problems. So podcast problems are only worth 10% of your grade. This is the easiest points that you'll ever get in this class. The podcast problems are basically examples that I made up, and then you watch the video and you write down what I write down. So basically you watch this and you just write down the work that I show, basically to prove that you actually watched the video. So with the lecture videos, I highly recommend that you watch all of them. With the podcast problems, you do need to write down your work to prove that you actually did them. So you just write down number 1 and then follow along as I go along, write down the work, and then you'll upload that. Again, with the assignments, when it comes to podcasts, you would just upload it here. And then here's a link for all of the podcast problems, showing all of the questions. With this, please don't write on this because there isn't enough space to really show all of the work. So just use a blank piece of paper and just write down number 1 and then write down the steps. But here are all of the questions that I go over. And again, if you look at the schedule, the podcast problems, the first time they're due is February 17th, and that's going to be numbers 1 through 15. So basically with the podcast problems, the first 2 come from section 2.1. So when you're working on section 2.1, you could watch the lecture video. I would also suggest you do the 2 podcast problems, then just put that aside. The next day when you're working on section 2.2, you could watch these 2 podcasts, write that down, set it aside, etc. And so you basically, it's basically just extra video help for every section. Usually it's 2 questions, sometimes 3 per section, but usually 2 questions per section. All right, and there's one other thing, and that is, again, if you look at the schedule, every Wednesday there's a participation quiz. And basically with the participation quiz, it's just, some of it's going to be like checking in, how did you do with MyMathLab homework, but there will also be math questions there. So look at the assignments. So every week there's a participation quiz. They're due every Wednesday. So this one, so it is, yeah, for a student it's not open yet, but because today's January 9th. But anyway, every Wednesday the participation quiz will be due. And of course you can use your notes to help you. It's not like it's an exam or something like that, so try to do well on those. All right, so that's basically the overview of how the class works. Um, so with the podcast problems, there's all the links for all of them in here. And oh yeah, I knew there was something else. So basically this is the, oh, I misspelled and. Okay, sorry, squirrel. So you can look at the notes, watch the video, and then I also have extra examples for every section. These don't have a video, but there are extra examples that I wrote out for every section. Okay, so that's the overview of how the class works. Please email me if you have any questions. And now I'm going to close this and start the video on how MyMathLab works. So please watch that next.